Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this week's class. We are going to discuss the same lesson that we have been discussing last week. It is the second portion. You can reach this lesson into your textbook page number 125. So, because this is in the continuation of the first, so let's go straight to the point that where we left the lesson last week. Last week we discussed about understanding the government, what is the difference between states and the government, and why do we need the governments, and then we discussed about power and authority. So this week we are going to discuss about different forms of the government. Let's move to the first slide of the lesson. As we discussed already that the objectives of the lesson are that you must be able to compare the different forms of the government and learn about the structures and the tiers of the government in a democracy. So lesson of the day starts with slide number 3. As you know that there are so many countries in the world. Every country has their own form of system running the state, and the system that runs the state actually is known as the government. So there are different forms of the government that are available or that are prevailing around the world today. So we have different kinds. Let's discuss the first major kind of the government, which is first major form of the government is a monarchy. Monarchy is the kind of a government in which the power is controlled by one person. That person can be a man or a woman. If it's a man, the guy is known as king. If it's a woman, it's usually she has the title of queen. Whereas in different countries that title can vary. For example, sultan, sheikh, emperor, they are all different names for a monarch. The monarchy is a kind of a government in which the monarch is ruling the country for the rest of the life. As long as he is alive, he will not be replaced by another guy unless there are certain circumstances. For example, he is unable to perform his job due to sickness or due to mental health. He can be removed from the office. Usually, Crown Prince is the guy who takes over the office of the king in case of death or in case the king is unable to perform his job. For example, in Britain, the power is the power is held by the Queen, but it is delegated to the Prime Minister. So at the moment, the Queen is head of the state and the Prime Minister is the head of the government. Whereas in Saudi Arabia, King is both the head of the state and the head of the government. There are different countries around the world that are monarchies. For example, we have let's start from the east. Japan, we have Thailand, we have Saudi Arabia, Oman, UAE, we have Marrakesh, we have Britain, we have Norway and Sweden, we have Spain, and we have Denmark, for example. They are Netherlands, for example. They are countries that have monarchies in their societies. They are established monarchies. Some of them are constitutional monarchies. For example, a constitutional monarchy is a kind of monarchy in which the powers of the monarch are clearly defined and rights and obligations of the citizens are also clearly defined. Next form of the government is parliamentary monarchy. Parliamentary monarchy is a kind of monarchy in which the monarch has a very limited power. You can say they are just ceremonial power, whereas the actual powers of making laws and implementing the laws in the country, they lie with the parliament, or you can say shura. So a parliamentary monarchy is a kind of monarchy in which the power to rule the country is divided between the monarch and the parliament, and majority of the powers are in the hands of the parliament. So day-to-day government of the country belongs to the parliament, which also holds the ministers or ministries, and the parliament is headed by the prime minister, who is the leader of the house of parliament, or you can say the chancellor, and the monarch is a ceremonial head of the state. As we just discussed in the previous slide, the United Kingdom is one of the parliamentary monarchy in the world. where the power is held by the monarch, but it is practiced by the prime minister. Another kind of the government is democratic republics. Majority of the countries around the world, they are republics actually. So a republic is the kind of the government in which the power to run the country belongs to the citizens. They can bring any government, they can replace any government if they believe that the government is unable to perform its job, or the government is unfair, or the government is misbehaving towards the citizen, they are misusing their authorities and rights, so they can replace a government through a defined procedure. This kind of the government is called democratic republic. There are so many countries of this example. So if the people of that country try to remove the government and bring a new one, there will be a procedure which is usually take place through voting. People vote for the new person to come into power and run the country. Another important form of the government is parliamentary democracy. Totalitarian regimes are and dictatorships, they are basically almost same to each other. They are kind of a government in which the power is controlled by either one person or sometimes a small group of people. Usually they come into power with the help of military, and they don't take care of the constitution of the country. They many of the time they make violations of the established constitution, but nobody can challenge them because they have the backing of the military. In these kind of the states, people they don't have any rights, and people they are very much suppressed and oppressed. People cannot criticize the policy of the government. If somebody tries to criticize, that person is usually put into prison or severely punished or sometimes executed. So a totalitarian state basically is a type of state in which the people who are ruling the country, they control the public thought, they control the social and cultural beliefs, so that nobody should try to evade the power, or the power that is in the control of one guy or a few. So this kind of the governments are usually in North Korea, China, Cuba, Myanmar, particularly Myanmar. Then some countries in South America. So they are totalitarian regimes. Then we have another kind of government which is socialist and communist. Basically, they are type of economic systems. A communist, or you can say communism, is type of an economic system which says that the wealth of the country belongs to everybody equally. And socialism is a kind of an economic system that says that the government must, it is the job of the government to provide the basic facilities to its people. Basic facilities like education, like housing, like different other welfare. So these kind of the countries are they are basically economic systems. So in these kind of the countries, for example, the economy in is controlled by the state. In both socialist and communist countries, the economy is controlled by state. Particularly in a communist country, there is very limited private ownership. People don't have their private businesses, people don't have their private land of a bigger scale. The land belongs to the state, everybody works, and they are in a communist country, they are given the facilities equal on the basis of equality. um, Same is the case in a socialist country. The government tries to provide welfare or prosperity to all its people on the basis of equality. So this kind of the government is in China and Vietnam, but in these this kind of the countries, usually the power is held by one party. There are no different political parties, and people they don't vote directly. So this was these are the two different types of the government. This is the map. This is the map that shows that how different countries around the world they have adopted different kinds of the government. You can see republics, which is brown color, dark brown. They are majority in numbers. The pink color is the monarchies. For example, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Canada, Britain, Norway, Sweden, Spain, Morocco, Japan, Thailand. These are monarchies. And purple color countries, you can say China, Vietnam. They are communist or socialist countries. Syria, Cuba in the South America, you can see the purple color country just next to America. They are communist or socialist countries, but majority of the countries are republics. So this is how the countries they have adopted different set of governments. You must know that what are the difference between a democracy and a dictatorship. In a dictatorship, the people have no rights, whereas in a democracy, people have the power to choose the government, to bring the government, to replace the government through a defined procedure. Usually they do this by a vote. This picture clearly tells you that how people vote and the majority opinion is implemented. Democracy means ruled by the people. In a democratic system, the people as a whole have the influence. The majority of the people, they elect the leadership of the country by vote. So that is the end of today's lesson. Hopefully you will be able to understand. I think there is one more slide. Let's move on to the new slide. Yes, as I just discussed in the previous slide, that in a dictatorship, one person holds the office, or you can say small group. Usually, these people take over the power with the help of militaries, and they run the country without consulting the people. People have no rights and privileges, and these countries run with brute force. Any person who tries to criticize the government or who tries to escape from the authority is actually punished very hardly. So this is called the dictatorship. As I told you, North Korea is an example of this. China is an example of totalitarian state. So this is what the difference between a dictatorship and a democracy. I hope you will be able to understand the lesson today. Thank you very much.